Liquidation of a limited company can feel like failure, but if you do it right, you have the right people around you, it's not the disaster that most directors picture. What it is an orderly legal process for closing an insolvent company down that can't be recovered. It allows you to deal with the debts properly, and it can protect you as far as the law allows. And it lets you move forward with your life. Now, if your company can't be saved, and you've reached the point where closing it down is the only real way forward, this video is going to walk you through exactly how to do it properly using liquidation. Now, there are a couple of things in here most directors have got no idea about. One of them is that closing the company down always means losing your business. Because listen, there's a legal way where you can come out the other side still trading with the business assets. I'll show you exactly how that works. And there's a cost in this process that catches directors out every single day of the week. One that doesn't die when the company does, lands on you personally. And if you don't know it's coming, it's a horrible surprise to have months after you thought it was all over. I'm going to show you what that is in this video and how it gets dealt with. And by the end, you're going to know exactly what the steps are to close an insolvent company using a liquidation. I'm going to show you the right order and how to come through it in the best position you possibly can. Now, before you do anything, okay, you've got to answer a question. Is your company actually insolvent? Because this type of liquidation we're talking about today is only for insolvent companies. And a lot of directors, they're not really sure what that means. They think insolvent's when an insolvency practitioner turns up or when they run out of money. And it's not, it's a threshold. And the good news is it's simpler to check than you'd think. That there are two main tests. And if you fail either one of these tests I'm about to talk to you about, your company is insolvent. The first is a cash flow test. Quite simply, can your company pay its debts as they fall due? If you can't, the company is cash flow insolvent, okay? The second test is the balance sheet test. Basically, add up everything that the company owns, cash, assets, plant, machinery, money due in, and then add up everything the company owes. And if what you owe is bigger than what you own, you fail the balance sheet test too. Now remember, you only need to fail one of them. Either one of them is enough to mean the company is insolvent. I had a director last week, he's called me, genuinely unsure whether he's in trouble, and I basically went through it. He was on a big time to pay arrangement with HMRC and he couldn't pay them. Couldn't miss it. He was not going to be able to pay his next VAT quarter and he just missed his time to pay. He's been insolvent on a cash flow basis for quite a while. But the surprising thing here is he thought he had £500,000 worth of stock in the business, which was actually more than he owed HMRC. Or that's what it said on his balance sheet, on his accounts. But it wasn't worth £500,000. You know, in an insolvency scenario, it might be worth 10p in the pound. But listen, the lesson for here is really clear. Ask yourself those two questions before you go any further. Can you pay your debts when they fall due? And do you owe more than you own? And if you fail either of them, you're insolvent. And if there's no hope of recovering this business in a reasonable time scale, a creditor's voluntary liquidation, which is what I'm talking to you about today, is going to be at least one of your options. And I sort of touched on it a little bit earlier. Just being insolvent at a point in time doesn't automatically mean liquidation's the answer. There's a second question that you need to be brutally honest with yourself about first. Now, insolvency on one of those tests doesn't always mean you're finished. Some insolvent companies can be rescued. So before you rush off and try and liquidate a business, I want you to answer this bit honestly. Is there a genuine, realistic hope that you can turn this round? Or is it truly over? And it matters in both directions. If you liquidate a business that could have been saved, you've thrown away something that's worth keeping. But if you're flogging a dead horse, you're just racking up more debt and more stress and You know, if you keep trading a business that's got no hope of recovery and has become insolvent, you're putting yourself personally at risk. And I remember this when I was, you know, most of you, well, you might not know if you're new to the channel, I'm not an insolvency practitioner. I've never sat my exam. But I do own the #1 director advisory company in the UK. I think the reason why we've been so successful is I've been where you're at. I had to put a company through an insolvency process many years ago. I was frightened, didn't know where to turn. And this is a bit that I got wrong myself. Like, my company had failed, but I couldn't bring myself to say the words out loud. You know, there was no realistic way back. I saw when there was a government policy change, everyone in my industry shut down. They literally shut down the day after. Me, having read that much personal development, I was dangerous. I thought that we would be able to trade through this. And I kept telling myself there was hope. Because I felt like if I admitted to myself that the company were over, that I'd failed as a person. I just didn't face it for a few months, kept going and hoping. And I avoided the one honest conversation that would have changed things. So how do you tell the difference between blind hope and you've really got a chance here? Well, you've got to strip out the hope and you've got to look at the maths. Is there a version of this business with the right changes that makes money again? You know, can you restructure those debts to say HMRC and your creditors over like a 12-month period and get yourself out of a mess? And if there genuinely is, liquidation might be the wrong tool. And you should be looking at some recovery options, like maybe a CVA. Very quickly, a CVA is where you restructure your company debts over 2 to 5 years. Or probably even better for you is a time to pay deal with HMRC and creditors, you know, where you just informally get better payment terms on HMRC, spread them over a longer period of time. You can do that with creditors. But listen, if the honest answer is that even on a good day, the numbers don't work anymore, then no amount of effort or hope is going to change it. No amount of positive affirmations is going to change things. It's over. And a liquidation can be one of the best things for everyone, including yourself and your creditors. Now, the lesson's this: don't liquidate a business that could be saved, and don't pour your life into one that can't. Take the hope out of things and look at the cold, hard numbers. If you face the truth early enough, it's not giving up. It's an honest step on the way to getting your actual life back in track. Now, once you know it's insolvent and you know it can't be saved, there's one move that matters more than any other at this stage. And the directors who get this wrong, they can pay for it down the line. And it's about who you talk to and how fast you do it. Now, I see this mistake happen every single week. A director has asked the question, can I get out of this? They understand the answers now. They know that insolvency and liquidation is the right thing to do. But they sit on that decision for months, frightened to death. Or they go charging into it like a bloody bull in a china shop without anyone reviewing the situation first. And both of those decisions that seem polar opposites are very, very dangerous. Now, you've got to be aware of this. The minute you become insolvent, and insolvency is probable, you have got to put your creditors' interests way above your own. You can't make it worse for anyone. You can't continue to take debts, can't continue to make customer deposits. You need to take advice at this stage. Like, literally ring somebody like me. Doesn't have to be me, right? In fact, you know what? I'm going to give you a call to action now. If what I've said so far has made you think, I might be able to talk to him, go into the comment section. At the top of the description, there's a link. You put your details in. One of my team will call you today and we'll walk you through your options. We've got more Trustpilot reviews than anyone else in our industry, free and independent, okay? If you don't want to talk to someone at the moment, I kind of get that. There's a link underneath in the description section and that'll give you a free guide to insolvency. All I want off you is an email for that, okay? But when you take advice, it's not necessarily to like ring someone up and say, I want to start the process. But you've got to do something that most directors don't really understand needs to happen first. And it's a proper review of your whole situation. Not just what's going on, what's the outcome you're looking for, how do we get to it from A to B legally. I believe you need to understand what problems are going to hit you as a result of liquidation personally. Because let me tell you, there are landmines here. And if you spot these problems early enough, they can't be mitigated, you can't click your fingers and go away, but you can plan for them. And if you plan for them, I believe the impact's going to be softened. But if you miss and you just rush in, these are going to blow up in your face and it's going to be too late to do anything about them. And a good advisor will go through things that create personal exposure. Directors' loan accounts, biggest problem for directors, you know. If you've been taking payments out of the business that you call a dividend, and you've been doing it, say, this last 6 months while your company's been insolvent, it's not a dividend. It's going to be converted onto an overdrawn director's loan account. And that's just easy to spot. If you've got a set of if you have an overdrawn loan account in your last set of accounts and you continue to take money in the same way, you've got a big problem that's going to hit you personally. You might have personal guarantees. I mean, there's not a day goes by now that, you know, a director I speak to hasn't got lots of personal guarantees to try and keep the business going. And in an insolvency, all of these are going to crystallize and they're going to come at you. Now, these things I'm talking about are manageable, but you've got to plan for them in advance. And where they become a big problem is like you discover them, or you only think about them once the liquidator's appointed. Now, literally, I'll call this guy Dave, right? Dave, the director. He was about to appoint an insolvency practitioner. Like, he had the notices on his desk. He knew he had a problem. Quite rightly, he's gone to seek insolvency advice, but he's not thought about it, this guy. He's like, I'm right, I need to go into liquidation, which was the right thing to do. He did need to go into liquidation. And my ugly mug has popped up somewhere on the internet, as it does. And he thought, you know what, I'll speak to him. And we reviewed it for him. And the things that we found out within an hour. He'd paid a family loan back a couple of months earlier. It was a clear preference. That was going to be a problem, okay? He also had a huge overdrawn director's loan account that no one had mentioned to him, right? Now, spotting these before actually signing the insolvency practitioner's papers meant he could plan for them calmly. He basically let him know that he had these two problems coming at him once he'd appointed. He actually didn't appoint that IP, he appointed a different insolvency practitioner. And he didn't have any nasty surprises, okay? He could plan for them, he knew what was coming. And that is the kind of review we do with directors before you decide to do anything. It's not a review that takes months, it's a review that can take hours. And the lesson's this: liquidation isn't a thing you do in a blind panic. The first step is always proper advice and reviewing your situation. Checking for directors' loan accounts. Have you made any preference payments? Have you took dividends when you shouldn't have done? Have you got personal guarantees that are going to be need to be dealt with once you go into insolvency? Because if you do this, you know exactly what those problems are that are going to land personally, so you've got a chance to plan for them in advance. Early advice and a proper review keeps all options open. And once you've had that advice, hopefully, you're going to go ahead. And the speed of what happens next is largely in your hands. And how quickly you move makes a real difference to how smoothly it goes and how quickly the pressure can come off you. And once you've decided to go ahead with a liquidation, you've got an insolvency practitioner. Remember, the insolvency practitioner are the only licensed and regulated person who can oversee a liquidation. That process can move quickly. but it's only if you've done your part. And this is where a lot of directors slow down without realising it. An IP needs a lot of information off you. They need a clear picture of the company before they can act. They're going to need to know bits of information from you before they can start that process. Now, just so you can get organised early, an IP is going to need a list of company assets. What are they? What is owed to the company? What exactly does the company owe and who does it owe? They're going to need bank statements. They're going to need recent accounts. They're going to need any up-to-date bookkeeping, details of any leases, any HP agreements that you've got. And once you've got all that together and you've given it over to them, they can start working. Don't drip feed it. Don't hide bits of information because you're embarrassed or you think it's going to cause you a problem. Listen, every IP in the land has seen it all before. And those things you're tempted to hide are usually the things that they really need to know. Like I say, directors' loan accounts. People do know it's a problem. And you're thinking, well, I'm not going to mention it to the IP if they don't. Listen, that's just going to cause you misery down the line. So get stuff over to people quickly and honestly. It speeds up the process and it allows the IP to do the job quickly. Because as soon as they're appointed, legal action stops. They're able to sort of stand in between you and the company's creditors. And every day you put off appointing that IP is a day where a creditor could issue, for instance, HMRC issue a winding up petition. Slow and guarded doesn't help anyone, I promise you. Now, here's the part I promised you at the start of the video, and it's the part that surprises directors more than anything else in the whole process. Closing your company down does not always mean losing your business. And I'll show you exactly how that works. Now, let's assume when a company gets liquidated, everything is gone forever. It's a wrong assumption. It's one of those insolvency myths that's spoken by Dave down the pub. You don't have to lose the equipment, the brand, the customer list. It doesn't all have to be lost. It's not true. And this is where a liquidation in some cases can be the start of something rather than the end of something. Now, I'll talk about Dave again. Dave is a guy who ran an engineering business. He was insolvent. He took his eye off the ball. He'd been ill. He could not get this business back on an even keel, okay? It was too much old debt and the market had changed. It had to go into liquidation. But there was some good work. There was some good contracts. I say contracts, it was more customers. It's not as if you could sell these customers to someone else. They wanted to work with Dave. Dave still wanted to work with them. There was some equipment that was useful in the right hands. The company were finished, but there were parts of the business underneath it that were worth saving. So here's what happened. Completely legally and properly. Dave's company did go into liquidation. But before the assets were simply sold off to anyone at auction, Dave was able to buy them back. The machinery, the tools, the bits that mattered. And he brought them into a brand new clean company, free of all the old legacy debt. Now, this is the bit you have to get exactly right, because there's a legal way to do it and there's an illegal way to do it. Dave didn't just take the assets or nick them for a token amount and sort of diminish them over the last few months out the back door. They were independently valued by a recognised agent and he paid a fair market price for them, okay? And the insolvency practitioner gave him a few months to pay all that money. And what the idea is the money comes into the insolvency practitioner and then it gets distributed out to creditors. And that's what makes it legitimate. Because the other side is you basically nick the company assets for less than what they're worth. You sell your van to a mate for £1,000 when it's worth £8. It's called a transaction undervalue and it can be reversed and it's easy for insolvency practitioners to spot. And that's exactly the kind of thing that can get you disqualified. And it's the difference between like a legitimate pre-pack and what they call phoenixing, you know. Make sure you get a proper independent valuation. Make sure you pay a fair price for the assets in the business that you want. And Dave, okay, he had to put his company into liquidation, but he's now still trading. Same skills, same customers, new company, no legacy debt. His old company were gone, but he hadn't lost his livelihood. And listen, the lesson is this. If there are assets in your company worth keeping, you may well be able to buy them back and keep your business alive, but only if it's done correctly. Get an independent valuation. Pay a fair market value through the insolvency practitioner. And if you do it that way, it's completely legitimate. And it's how a lot of directors get a genuine fresh start. If you do it the wrong way, you just help yourself to the assets cheap. It's one of the fastest routes to disqualification. So if there's something worth saving, say so early and we can help you get it valued properly. Now, alongside the hope of that fresh start, there's a harder truth I want to talk about. And I've got to be straight with you here, that there is a cost in liquidation that most directors don't see coming. And it's the one I warned you about at the start. Doesn't die with a company. The overdrawn director's loan account, okay? Most directors believe that once the company's liquidated, the slate is wiped clean. The company's debts go with the company that's liquidated. And for a lot of those debts, that's true. Not all of them. The big one that survives is your overdrawn director's loan account. And we've touched on it a couple of times now. And here's why it matters so much. If over the years you've taken money out of the company that wasn't paid through payroll and couldn't be declared as dividends, basically you've took too much out of the company, it sits as a loan from the company to you. You owe it back to the company. And the moment your company goes into liquidation, that overdrawn balance is an asset of the company. And an insolvency practitioner's legal duty is to recover it from you personally. And this is what catches directors out. They think liquidation's an end to it all. Then 3 months later, they get a letter from an insolvency practitioner asking for 30, 40, 50, 60 grand, whatever the figure happens to be. The company has died, yeah, but that particular debt hasn't. Now, here's the bit that should take a bit of fear out of you. There is a way through this part too. It can be dealt with, right? An insolvency practitioner, any insolvency practitioner, has got a discretion to settle an overdrawn director's loan account for less than it actually is. But it's as long as that settlement that they're accepting is in the best interest of the creditors of the company. Let's say you've got nothing, you know, you're renting, low disposable income, no realisable assets. There is a genuine chance it will get written off entirely by the IP because they can't justify spending legal costs chasing you for something that's never going to get a return in the end. Now, don't get me wrong, there's going to be personal tax implications to overdrawn loan accounts, but I'm not an accountant. I'm talking to you from an insolvency point of view. But let's say you got an house with equity in, or a house with, you know, no mortgage. That's what you should be working to protect here. And the way you do it is by understanding what an IP would realistically recover from you if they made you, please don't fall off your chair, made you bankrupt. Now I'm saying that word, it's not to scare you, it's to help you understand how you position an offer on an overdrawn loan account. People think bankruptcy is quick. It's not. It's slow. It's expensive. And it's very risky for an insolvency practitioner. Now let's think about it. Let's say an insolvency practitioner is chasing you to go to court to make you bankrupt. Yes, they could spend huge amounts of money to get you to court. And yes, a judge could give them a judgment. But who's to say that you've got the money to pay the judgment? And then they go through the bankruptcy process. Well, who's to say at the end of that process you've not hocked yourself up to the eyeballs in personal debt and there's nothing left for creditors? Or by the time they have made you bankrupt and sold your house, all the money has gone in legal fees and there's nothing left for creditors. So if you offer an IP more than they'd likely get going down that road, there's a strong chance that they'll accept a settlement. I mean, listen, we do this all the time. If as long as you tell us everything up front, you know, what is your personal net worth position, we can usually give you a good idea of what a settlement might look like before you've even signed with an IP. Now remember, an IP can't formally agree to anything until they've been, you know, appointed and they've done all the relevant investigation work. But like I say, we've been doing this a long time. We've helped thousands of directors. So listen, we're not far wrong as long as you tell us everything. Anyway, the lesson's this: liquidation does not wipe out an overdrawn director's loan account. And it doesn't wipe out your PGs either. Both of those survive an insolvency. But they are manageable. The loan account can be settled, sometimes for a fraction, sometimes written off entirely. And the way to protect what matters is to understand the numbers and deal with it head on. The directors who get hurt here are the ones who don't know it was coming. So listen, you've reviewed everything, you've handed it over, you've worked out your director's loan account. There's one last step, and it's the one where you finally let go, okay? Once everything's in place, the actual mechanics of putting the company into liquidation are quicker than most people expect. In a creditor's voluntary liquidation, the board of directors formally decides the company should be wound up. Then your shareholders pass a resolution to do it. It's 2 bits of paper. That needs 75% agreement by share value. Okay, so 75% of shareholders need to agree. But with a lot of small companies, it's probably just you and a partner. And a set of notices and documents get signed, and a licensed insolvency practitioner at the creditors meeting is formally appointed. It can take around 14 days, that. And my advice is simple. Once you've made that decision, you've done the groundwork, sign the bloody notices promptly. Don't drag it out. Every day a known insolvent company keeps trading is a day you risk making things worse. And it can add to the criticism that you might face later. Because remember, this insolvency practitioner has got to report on your conduct. Hesitating at that final step doesn't protect you. It can cause you an headache. And then comes the part that's hard for a lot of directors, especially the ones who've sort of carried the businesses for years. The moment that liquidator is appointed, they take over. They control the assets to try and sell them to realise some money. They deal with your creditors. They run the whole process. Your job's over. I mean, you've got to cooperate fully if they ask you a question, give them the books and records. But you step back and you let them do their job. And I'll tell you what surprises most directors. It's the relief. They might have had months or years of carrying it all alone, lying awake at night, worrying what to do, feeling like every problem was theirs to solve. When you handle it to someone whose actual job is to deal with these problems, it can feel like putting something down that's been incredibly heavy. I promise you it's not a weakness. And for a lot of people, it's the first proper night's sleep they've had in a long time. Listen, the lesson's this. When it's time, sign them papers quickly. Formally appoint your insolvency practitioner and let them get on with them. Cooperate with them. Be honest with them. And over anything they ask for, give it them quickly. Just let them carry it from here, okay? Anyway, I hope you found the video useful. Now, if you want to find out more about how you work out whether you've got one of these overdrawn loan accounts, because let me tell you, that's a problem for most people. I want you to go over there and watch that video about overdrawn loans. They're going to help you find out where yours might be, how you can find out what it is and what you can do about it. Thanks for your time, Chris Worden. Goodbye.